Benjamin Jealous joins us, former head of the NAACP, People for the American Way, and now the head of Sierra Club.
Yes.
All right, great to have you here. Always good to see you, Ben. All right, so tell me about what's going on at the Sierra Club. How are we trying to fight for climate change?
Look, we are extremely excited right now. We just calculate that next year we get to celebrate 1 million asthma attacks prevented, 100,000 heart attacks prevented because we shut down 385 coal-fired power plants, which is that's our big climate change strategy, right? I was saying to Bill McKibben the other day, when Bill wrote the first book on climate change, he said by 2030, the Earth's temperature will have increased 4 degrees. Now we could keep it under 1.5, and we'll definitely keep it under 2. And that's because we've done half the work. Here, all the big fight for climate change for the next, whatever it is, 72 days or whatever that's left, is making sure that Kamala Harris stays in office. She cast the deciding vote for the Inflation Reduction Act. It's the biggest investment of any Western country in fighting climate change, but also it's the biggest investment we've seen in our lifetimes in rebuilding American manufacturing. And you keep that going for 12 years, which is what's on the table, and you got a chance for an FDR-like impact on the ports, on manufacturing and building an economy that lifts all boats, and actually meeting our goals to help stabilize the Earth's climate.
You don't see this in the news a lot, but I have friends who say, maybe the better path in fighting climate change is to go back and focus on the other health effects of fossil fuels, pollution that leads to all the other ailments, cancer, heart attacks, et cetera, that kill so many people. Is there a discussion about that because you mentioned those stats about the number of deaths, et cetera?
Look, I think the number one kind of principle of organizing, especially like in an election, is you start by saying something, what's important to you? And then you say to them, well, that's exactly why we need to blank. And the reality is, if what's important to you is jobs, that's exactly why we need to keep doubling down and building our capacity to produce wind turbines and solar panels and EVs and batteries, because that's where the world economy goes. It's the big opportunity in the world. This century is to change the way the entire world is powered. That's a lot of manufacturing. We do that here. We lead the world economy. Then you say somebody, what's really important to you? They're like health. Well, what's killing everybody? Fossil fuels. Real talk. When we shut down a coal-fired power plant, all of a sudden, asthma disappears. You know what I'm saying? Heart attacks go down. When you stand in, Houston, it's clear, in the 5th Ward, which is right there where all of those oil and smoke fumes are coming through, clear connection to cancer. And you know who else is killing? Not just the poor black folks who are right there, but the white folks who live across the street and the Latinos who live over here. But the other thing, right? You talk to a lot of people. We met fighting a rigged economy back in 2016. Who's rigging the economy? Well, whether it's Nigeria or it's Saudi Arabia or it's America or it's Canada, it's the fossil fuel industry. And so, yes, corruption, jobs, healthcare, we should talk about all of it.
So, Ben, during Biden, we wanted to get Green New Deal. We got the Inflation Reduction Act, and that went a good way towards Green New Deal. Of course, not all the way.
Sure.
So what is the new ask of the new administration on climate change?
Well, we are working on that now at Sierra Club and with a bunch of green groups. We're obviously doing scenario planning, either way. Trump gets in, we got to focus on the states. But we also have to, frankly, focus on activating these Republican governors who are all benefiting from the Inflation Reduction Act right now, right? I loathe Brian Kemp in so many ways. Stacey Abrams is my best friend for 30 years. But there's one thing we agree on. We need more solar panel production facilities like the one in Dalton and Cartersville, Georgia, And so you better believe we will be activating those governors. God forbid Trump gets into office. But man, yes, I do believe there will be an IRA too. There'll be an IRA 3. Again, because this is a win-win-win. Let me break that down. Increasing U.S. production, bringing back manufacturing to produce these green technologies helps fight climate change. Doing that moves us beyond the legacy of NASA. It helps create an economy that lifts all boats. Doing that helps to end these decades of division in this country. What's going on in this country right now with working people scapegoating each other, right? The scapegoating of immigrants, all of that, it's the same thing that happened in England with Brexit. Same thing happened in Germany with the scapegoating in the 1930s. You trap the working class people of a country in downward economic mobility, multi-generationally, and they're at each other's throats. You want to turn that around, you got to turn the economy around. And this is the big engine for turning the economy around.
So to what degree are environmental groups, different environmental groups, new groups that are empowered by young folks, Sierra Club, legendary environmental group for a long time, to what degree do you guys coordinate and work together?
There's a lot of coordination. My focus at Sierra Club is really expanding the movement. When I came in, at the state level, we have state directors, but we only have them for half the states, even though we have groups in all 50 states. And we're the only environmental group in more than 35 states. We're in all 50. We're every corner of Mississippi, every corner of every state in the country. But we were in every blue state. We had professional leadership. And it's about 6 of 30 odd red states. Well, now we're in about 14 of the red states. We picked up a couple of purple states. And why are we doing that? Because about 89%, according to the Energy Foundation, of large-scale renewable projects are headed for red states. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but we got to do it the right way because there's transmission lines to be laid. Well, those can go through a Native American community or around it. They can go through a working-class white community or around it. And what we often do is, we have a choice. We can either do the organizing on the front end to make sure this is done right, or litigation on the back end that will slow it down. Well, we got to move fast. So we got to organize on the front end. But also what we know is that young Republicans are increasingly environmentalists who are concerned about climate. Fully 25% of Republicans call themselves environmentalists. Yeah, that's like 1 out of 4, but it's not like 1 out of 10. But when you look at young Republicans, it's like 50%. And so we also have to organize with hope that we can move beyond these years of this being a one-party issue.
So to that point, obviously donors are a huge factor here.
Yes.
And so in this issue, it's fossil fuel companies that are donors.
Yeah.
And when we see donors move, we see parties move. So for example, the NRA used to fund Republican and Democratic politicians, and oftentimes it would be conservative Democrats that would block legislation, right, on gun control. So now the NRA has abandoned the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party has abandoned the NRA.
Yes.
So now all the Democrats vote for gun control, right? So where are we with the fossil fuel companies and how much they're donating to Democrats?
Honestly, you see a lot of confusion amongst, and I say this to somebody who ran for governor, right? You see a lot of confusion amongst a number of Democratic governors and the people who aspire to be, because the liquid natural gas industry overinvests in governors. Right? You see people out there, Mary Landrieu, you see Michael Nutter, they're spokespeople for the industry. And they want you to believe this is some type of transition fuel, and it's not. It is carcinogenic, it is polluting, and it accelerates climate change. And that probably is the clearest. When I ran for office, I took a fossil fuel finance pledge. A lot of folks will do that. But we need to understand that the fossil fuel industry is a massively corrupting industry. We like to point at other countries and shake our fingers. It's just as true here. Local power companies are similarly corrupting. I was in Michigan. I say to a legislator, a Democrat, who came in as a climate organizer. That was his job before he was in politics. I said, "What's it like?" And he said, "Man," it's wild. He said, both parties, same thing. You get elected, and they said, now one of your responsibilities is to raise money for the party. And they say, and he said, and literally he said, "Ben, what I found out is that here in Michigan, pretty much all my colleagues, both parties, are on the power company payroll." I said, "How are they on the power company payroll?" He said, "Well, we're told that the best way to raise money is to create a personal 501c4 account." Right? It gets worse. He said, "Unlimited donations. Number one contributor, DTE, the big energy company." By the way, Detroit that year was September, had 18 power outages, and Ann Arbor had 13 power outages. And yet these people control the state capitol, right? They can't do their job. And so he says, And I'm one of the few ones who won't take money from him. He said, but Ben, he said, we're also told we can convert 30% of the money we take in a year to personal use.
Oh my God.
And
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And I was just like, and it's corruption in plain sight. And that's happening across the country because let's talk about this, right? Sierra Clubs, we fought for energy freedom for Americans for decades. You know what energy freedom is? You have solar panels and a battery. Bernie's Solar for All addendum to the Inflation Reduction Act, which allows, folks, for example, in Cuyahoga County in Cleveland, where Nina Turner's from, working class people will be able to put solar panels on their roofs, zero cost. Suddenly, your cost of power plummet. It's way cheaper right? So you save a lot of money. It's important to working class families. Well, you know who loses money? The power monopoly.
Yep. So that's the way to get around them. And and I know, so what I was shocked by is that 30% going to personal use. So it's not just legalized bribery through campaign contributions. Now they're going to get to put it in their pocket. Yeah. Right. And so, but utilities.
To verify, that's literally what he said to me. And I was just like,
yeah.
Why can't I trust you? You've been in there for two terms. You're breaking down what you're told. That's what he was told. That's what he told me. He hasn't done it because he didn't take the money.
Right.
But
yeah, and similar things have happened in South Dakota and a couple other states.
Yeah.
So it should be shocking. It's becoming less shocking. But and you're absolutely right. Utilities and real estate companies are the top local donors, right? National level, it's drug companies. But at the local level, the utilities and the local energy companies dominate local politics.
The fossil fuel industry, literally the big oil, big gas. I mean, you're talking about something approximating 40% of the money going into the Republican super PACs, funding that part.
That is a giant number.
Yeah, it's like 37%. It's massive.
Yeah.
It's massive.
And that's why Republicans never, ever move on it. That's why they do the propaganda about climate change.
That's why they drill, baby, drill.
Exactly. Because they're literally paid to say that.
Yes.
Okay, so last thing then about the convention.
Yeah.
So, with Biden, it felt a little moribund, right? People were starting to lose some hope. Now all of a sudden, explosion of hope. So what's your take on the transition and what's happened now?
Again, I've known Kamala Harris for 20 years. I knew her when she was a crusading, courageous prosecutor who was literally expanding the circle of justice in San Francisco in an inspiring way. I partnered with her when I was a foundation president out there for a few years, took a break from the East Coast, flew out there to run a foundation. And she, as DA, what inspired me was she was picking up the phone to call individual employers to get jobs for individual defendants who are in there for a first-time nonviolent offense, like a drug dealing offense, to give them a set-aside sentence and they just go get a job. But she got them the job, but she got them the training. And so we said, well, let's give you some money to help you get some social workers to help you do this because you're doing it as a prosecutor. And when I got to know Kamala, I got to know her mentor. Her mentor is Felton Henderson. Felton Henderson is one of the most progressive justices in America, period. He's in the federal courts in California. He was the second Black hired as a prosecutor by the U.S. Department of Justice. He got fired from DOJ for lending Dr. King his car when Dr. King was broke down the side of the road and he saw him and he's like, oh no, we got to get you out of Alabama. Rev, take my car. I'll get yours fixed and you can get my car back tomorrow. Well, the Sovereignty Commission got a photo of Dr. King driving a DOJ car and Felton got canned. And he found young Kamala Harris, who then was at Hastings Law School, I believe, and said to her, I bet you're planning on becoming a defense attorney or a civil rights lawyer. So, think about your daughter, a civil rights activist. So, what's better than fighting the power, having the power? So, if you're a prosecutor, you get to decide if they get charged, what they get charged with. And that shifted her mindset. And I believe that opened the door that led right to here.
So, excited about the future?
I am excited about the future. And you know what? I know you're carrying a lot of pain right now about what's happening in the world.
Yeah.
One of the beautiful things that's happened this summer, right? Because Joe Biden's a workaholic, right? So right now he doesn't have to campaign. You know what he's focused on? Working with Egypt, working with Qatar. I was in the Oval Office with him last week. And he was doing this thing that apparently nobody's seen any other president do. Is if you're in there, he wants to look, you have a great experience. I mean, this man, probably no politician who became president who had their eyes set on being president longer, more decades than Joe Biden. And he's finally there. And he treasures it. He wants you to understand, like, the painting of Lincoln, understand what's happening. He goes into historian mode. And his staff comes in and says, Mr. Biden, we need to cut this short. He says, why is that? He said, because we have Qatar on one line, we have Egypt on the other line, and only you can get this over the goal line. He said, I'm on it. And so I think that there's a lot of good things happening right now because this is happening here. And I got to tell you, you and I have both talked about this before. So often, like the Democrat slogan seems to be, we're fighting to try not to lose. What I'm saying? And this time it feels like we're playing to win, and that feels good.
Yeah, you're a little bit more hopeful about the peace deal and Biden, et cetera, but I do feel hope in this building.
Yes.
And what I love is the exact point you made at the end there. Now they got placards out there, Ben, that says, when we fight, we win.
Yes.
And we've been trying to get them to fight this entire time, right? And now finally they're fighting. So that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Ben Jealous, Sierra Club. Everybody, of course, go help the Sierra Club.
Yes.
Thank you for joining us, brother.
Love and appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.